everyone, it's Tamara here from Dr. Digi Stamps with another card making tutorial, this time using the new release image called Eighties Ade. I'll also be using the new cassette backing papers for this card. I'll start with some Copic colouring of Ade and then we'll get started with the card making tutorial. So I've printed out my backing paper, and this I'll be using the blue one for today, but they do come in an array of colours. And I've also cut out Ade ready to go for the card. I'll need a rectangle die to cut out 2 white panels, one of the cassette and one of the red, and then one round white circle as well. So it doesn't matter if you don't have a full copy of the red and one white panel and the cassette panel. You only need one full rectangle of the white, as we're going to kind of layer all the other cards up on top of that. And then we're just going to set Ade and the circle aside and just work on our background. So I've got my main piece of the white rectangle that we'll be using as our back, and I'm just going to add the cassette paper, glue that directly to the front of that, just on one side. And it doesn't matter really which side that you have that facing, but I'm having it with the cassettes facing down. So I'm just lining that up to make sure that it matches all the way around, because we don't want that white card base showing through. Now with the red piece of cardstock, I'm only wanting a very thin layer of red to go underneath where my white is. So I'm just going to trim that in half so that there's not too much bulk to the back of our card, and just line that up and just make sure that that fits on that background. And then we're just going to glue the white piece of cardstock on top of our red piece of cardstock, so that we've just got a nice little red border down the end. So I find it's easier to put glue on the white cardstock and then just stick it on top of our red, and that way you know you'll get a nice even red line all the way along our edge of our white cardstock. Now we want to trim our white panel down to fit that side, so I've just kind of moved it down slightly, and just with the pencil I'm marking roughly where I want it to sit, and I'm just going to cut on the inside of where that pencil mark is. So I was just looking at this and just found that once I put the white circle on, it kind of disappears with that white cardstock that I've used with the red. So I've decided to use this blue cardstock, which kind of matches in with the color of our backing paper, and add the red. Luckily I had a piece of that red cardstock left over, so that worked out well because it was still perfectly cut. And we're just going to line that blue up now with that red line, and I think that just looks a lot better. And I'll just place Ade on there with the white, and now that white circle just pops, and so does Ade. Now because we'd already cut our white panel, we'll be able to use that as a guide for cutting out our blue and red panel. So I've just grabbed out my paper trimmer, I've marked that with a pencil, and I'm just going to cut on this side of that pencil line, and we'll pop that on the front, and that lines up perfectly. So we'll get that now attached to the front of our card base. So we'll just get that on that edge, again lining up to make sure that that white background panel is covered. I actually had this set from MFT, the mixtape messages, which I just thought would be totally perfect for this card and Ade and his cassettes. So I've grabbed a piece of black scrap cardstock, just prepping it with my powder tool, and just using my Versa watermark ink, I'm just going to ink that up, and grab out my stupendous white embossing powder, my folded piece of A4 paper to catch any residue that's left over from our powder, give that a tap off and pour that back in. I've preheated my heat tool, and I'm just giving that a nice blast to melt that, and just rub off the excess powder with my anti-static cloth. And now I'm just going to line up my strip banner die to cut our sentiment out. I've already pre-cut and scored a white card base, and all the measurements will be in the description box below. And I'm just lining my front panel onto our card base. I'll be gluing the circle directly to the card front. You could prop it up with some foam tape, but I'm just going to leave it flat on the card front and just pop Ade up with some foam tape. So with the sentiment, I'll just glue that directly on the front. I did leave a bit of room on either end of the sentiment strip, so that way that Ade can just kind of sit over the top of that. I've already popped on the foam tape, and we'll just take off the release paper, and we'll get him lined up on the front of the card. I wanted to add a couple of kind of embellishments to my card front. I didn't have anything that really suited until I found this old Spellbinder set that I had with these notes, and I thought that would work perfectly with the theme. So I'm actually cutting 3 in total so that it kind of draws your eye to Ade, and I'm just going to stack them one on top of the other, so I've got 3 kind of stacked per note. I have all my notes stacked up 3 high per note. So now I'm just going to get them attached to the front of the card. I'm just going to place them around Ade so that it just draws your eye to him. So I'm just having one at the top right hand side, one at the bottom right, and then just one to the left of him just above the sentiment. And that will just frame him nicely. So I'm just making sure no glue is sneaking out from underneath those. And we'll get the final one just attached, and you can angle these or keep them straight, whatever you like. Now, to make these look like real embellishments, I've actually grabbed out my glossy accents, and I'm just going to add glossy accents to each of these. So just be careful as you apply it that you don't go over the edge, but it was quite easy to do this. Now that glossy accents is dried, you can see now just the shine that these notes have. They look like actually embellishments that you've purchased from a store. It just really gives them something extra, and I think they really finish off this card nicely. Ade was so fun to colour, and I think that anyone that got him on a card would have a good giggle at this image. And he works perfectly with those cassette papers as well. I hope you've enjoyed this card making tutorial. If you have, please hit the like button and leave a comment. And if you'd like to see any future videos, please make sure you hit the subscribe button. Thank you so much for watching. Have a great day. Bye.